Hello, my name is Benjamin Kahn, and I'm a professor here at Louisiana State University of English, Women's Gender, and Sexuality Studies. I'm also the editor of the Cambridge History of Queer American Literature, a volume that I am immensely excited to tell you about today. The volume brings together more than 50 scholars from around the world in order to tell the story of American literature from its earliest beginnings all the way up until yesterday. The volume really grew out of a felt need in the field, a sense that we don't really have a story of queer American literature in its wholeness. And so the book really synthesizes and advances a lot of the phenomenal work that's been done on queer authors and queer literary movements in order to try to think about how all the disparate and various parts of that story fit together. And so the volume has a really multi-perspectival and kaleidoscopic organization in order to really capture the variegation and richness of queer American literature. I think anybody who's worked in or around queer American literature knows that so many of the figures of American literature, whether it's Willa Cather or Suisun Farr, or Henry James, James Baldwin, Langston Hughes, are themselves queer people. And so one of the questions that the volume asks is, how did that happen? How did the national literature of the United States itself become so queer? And so the volume's organization is broken up into 6 sections. And the first section is called The Sexuality of American History. And in that section, scholars are grappling with a lot of the major events in American history, whether it's slavery or progressive era immigration or the Cold War, in order to think about how queer American literary histories square with or build on or make possible or are in dialogue with these historical events. And the effort in that section is really to think about what are some of the major timelines of queer American literature. In the next section, the book turns to a lot of the major queer literary movements of American literary history in order to think about how those literary movements and those literary histories intersect with and interact with histories of queerness and queer life. In the third section is called Queer Genre. And in that section, scholars are really thinking about the affordances of various genres in the making of queer life. And so this includes a whole host of genres like poetry and drama, of course, fiction and science fiction. And that section really asks, what kinds of models for life do generic forms make possible? The fourth section builds on that question. It's called Race and the Politics of Queer and Trans Representation. And that section's thinking about racial forms and modes of racialized sexuality and how those produce particular stories of queer American literature. The fifth section is called Space and the Regional Imaginary of Queer Literature. And in that section, scholars are really trying to think about the sectional drama of the United States, the way that the geography of the United States is not stable throughout its history, but is expanding, and thinking about the ways in which those expansions, whether it's through imperial possessions or otherwise, are really reimagining the literature of the time. The last section is called Queer Method. And in that section, scholars are trying to think about how it is that we recognize a queer text, how it is that we recognize a queer American text, what it is that makes a text American or queer or even literary. And so I hope that this kaleidoscopic organization really tries to encompass American literature in its richness and its wholeness, and that I hope that you'll enjoy reading and learning from the volume as much as I've enjoyed editing it.